All right, folks. We had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows during the Baylor game. I'm bringing you the good, the bad, and the ugly from that game, and if we're going to fix it for the UCF game. All that and more on this episode of Alpine Garage Sports. Let's make this succinct and get right down to the point. That game against Baylor was unbelievable. I left there on a high. I'm still on a high just because it was a great football game. And I love great football games, and so do you. Blowing people out by 50, 60 points, it's fun for a brief moment. And then after that, it's just seeing the same thing over and over again. So I like these close games. But that said, it was against Baylor, and we have much harder teams coming up. So let's look at the good, the bad, and the ugly for this game real quick. And then in the next video, we'll break down UCF and look at our chances there. And I can already tell you it's obviously going to be tough. The good, let's call it the great. Let's call it the great. Obviously, this game was made up of a handful of heroes, really. I mean, the team did extremely well against Baylor, but there were a handful of heroes that actually pulled out the win. We all know who those are. They are Shedeur for being able to do what I consider to be, and I think almost anybody else does, remarkable to get that 43-yard pass off because he was under an extreme amount of pressure. And he got that ball off perfectly, and the scenario played out right to where Miller was in the right place at the right time, and he kept that ball off the turf. So kudos to Miller for making that happen. That would have been a super easy ball for anyone to accidentally let touch the turf, and we lose this game. But he found a way to get it done. And then also Travis, not only all the way out through the game with 130 yards, just looked fantastic, but also that last second punch of the football to get it out before Baylor crossed the line in order to send us into double overtime was remarkable. So hero status all the way around. That is the great. Also the great is something that I didn't see that you guys may have seen is I heard that on Fox, they were showing the miracle at Michigan during the timeout right before Shedeur threw that miracle at Folsom right after that. And I wish I could find a rebroadcast of that because that would have been in my head epic to see those two back to back on a live TV stream. I mean, I just, it's blowing my mind right now. And I'll probably never lose that memory. So now let's go into some other good things before we get into the bad and then the ugly, right? Shedeur was super physical in this game, and I loved that. Some of the things that we've been missing maybe in past games was that it didn't feel like Shedeur was the type of quarterback at this point that was willing to put his body on the line for a win, even though we've seen it in the past. Don't roast me, guys, okay? I know, and he knows that he needs to make good decisions in order to make it to the next level. And as a team, we should be good enough to where he doesn't have to do that, right? But in past games, I've kind of felt like maybe some other quarterbacks were more physical than he was on the football field. In this game, I would say absolutely not. He was the most physical quarterback I have ever seen from him in any game. He rushed the ball 11 times intentionally. And did really well at it. I was joking on the live right after the game that what if we were in the future and I said that Shedeur is a dual threat quarterback, no one would believe me. Well, guess what? It happened. I mean, they had to deal with Shedeur running, and they found that hard to do. It obviously messed up their game plan considerably. He was blocking the best I think I've ever seen him block. And then that tush push on the for the TD, that Welch TD, where he did the tush push, he got in there and he forced it in. I mean, he's not a small guy. He's 200 plus pounds. He was every bit of the effort that it took us to get that touchdown just from after he handed off the ball. So kudos and the good to Shedeur for being super physical in this game. Another one, 24 points scored by Baylor in the first half, 7 points by Baylor in the second half. We have continued on our trend of the defense coming back in second halves and really shutting it down. And they did a great job in that second half. Now, Should we have, allowed them 24 points in the first half? No, but that wasn't all the defense's fault. We'll get into that in a minute. But man, they really showed up in the second half, and they really did a great, great job keeping them to 7 points. I'm going to say another great thing about this game are the multiple personnel sets that we had. We weren't just in 10 formation every single time. We had tight ends in there. I saw 12 formation. I saw 20 formation. I mean, we had double reverses in there. We were getting creative. Our tight ends caught 2 passes. And by the way, our tight ends were 100% with catches. That is 2 for 2, same as the running backs were in, I think it was the CSU game or maybe even the NDSU game, where they were 3 for 3 or 4 for 4. Those short passes are impeccable for us, and we need to really be thinking about that going in the future. We'll talk about it in the next episode coming up to UCF. But multiple personnel sets, kudos. I asked for that. I think a lot of us were asking for that, and they gave it to us. Bang, there you go. All right, now the bad. Because we have to talk about the bad, and the reason why we do is because as to get to be a better team, we have to talk about where our opportunities lie. We should have beat Baylor by more than we did, and it shouldn't have had to been in overtime. So let's talk about that. Shedeur had a great game from the effort standpoint, but this was one of his worst games from a completion standpoint. 25 for 41 for 60.9% completion. He had one other one this year at 60.5. I believe that was against Nebraska, where he threw 38 times. He threw 41 times in this game at 60.9. Now, I'm not drawing a line here and saying that when he passes above 35 times, his accuracy fails, because he had one game in there where he threw against CSU where he threw 49 times and had a 73%. But it seems that the more he's having to throw, the less he is accurate. And so I'm just going to leave that out there for you guys to look at. The other thing too is Shepard was 1 for 6. He was targeted 6 times, had 1 catch. When you go back and look at those, it wasn't all his issue. Some of those were behind him. Some of those were on the ground. But Shepard did not have a great showing in this game. And it looks like it might be. He's had some pretty good showings this year, so I don't think it's on him. But did they just combine there for kind of a tough passing game there for a little bit? Another bad thing, sacked 8 times. Not going to go into that a lot because we're used to that. But it all happened primarily in the second half. And I'm just going to throw this out there. We've been trying to run the ball more. We haven't really run the ball more. We ran it probably this game more than other games. I want to say that we ran it 33 times if you count Shedeur's rushes, not the sacks, but Shedeur's rushes. But if you take Shedeur's rushes out of that, and they were just basically run design plays with the running back, we only ran it 21 times, 22 times. And one of those was the double reverse to Horn. So at this point, we still have not gone to the level in the rushing that I would like to see, which is over 30 rushes, dedicated rushes by the running back. But I think that maybe we're getting to the point where we can run block better, and that might be messing with our pass block. That's the only thing I'm saying, right? We're in that transition phase to where we can be good at both. But right now, maybe we can only be good at one or the other. Okay, maybe that's the case. Put that down in the comments. What do you think of that? Okay, so we already went too bad. Let's go to ugly. Special teams was ugly, guys. It was. We obviously we would have won this game handily if we hadn't allowed for that kickoff return for a touchdown. The guy was basically untouched all the way to the end zone, and it was gross to watch. And I know Colorado wants that back. We also had a punt return, a 45-yard punt return, which set them up in great field position as well. So our coverage teams did not really show up all that well. And that could be a problem in the future because we're going against some pretty good teams that have great kickoff and punt return teams. So that is something that we need to look at. Another ugly thing, and this is the ugliest thing, and I'm going to say this because I mentioned it not only in the pregame, but also in a Nebraska. I had a Nebraska video last week, which wasn't aimed at Colorado, but kind of was. And it had to do with Nebraska lost their game the week before due to a failure in their ability to manage the game. And I picked out one particular play, which was a 4th down. And I went over that, and it wasn't viewed by a lot of people because it was a Nebraska video and not a Colorado video, but it needed to be seen more, I think, because we replicated that in this game. Like, I foresaw that 5 days in advance, and we did. And so here's the ugly part of that. In the fourth quarter, we were tied 24-24. We had come back to tie Baylor. 4th and 8. We were on 37 with 9:15 left on the clock, which would have been a 52-yard field goal. It was 4th and 8. 4th and 8, we are tied, and we still have 9 minutes on the clock. Now, in my brain, to me, this is an obvious field goal attempt. We have a kicker that not everybody's high on right now, and I get that, okay? So Mata's on a lot of people's short lists for not playing very well. But he is coach's kicker. Coach brought him to the school, to Colorado. He outkicked everybody else for the starting position with a little bit of flip-flop back there with Feely. And then he won the starting position this year. And kicking is a vital part of our game. And we're kicking at altitude. You know, we're kicking in the rain, but we're kicking at altitude. In a point that I made in a previous video, game management is super important. Another point that I made in the pregame video is that we need to trust our kickers. And I was afraid that we would not trust our kickers. In fact, I think I specifically said, I'm afraid that we don't trust our kickers. Okay. Now, this showed me that we are afraid to trust our kickers. And on 4th and 8, we tried to go for it on our 37. We failed to make the conversion. In fact, Shedeur got sacked. And we gave Baylor the ball back on the 37. And they were able to drive that for the go-ahead touchdown that required us to throw a Hail Mary at the last second in order to tie. So this is what I would have said on that. Now, or screaming at the field again. In fact, I think my entire row was. We didn't want to go for it on 4th down. We wanted to kick a field goal. If you were super afraid that we weren't going to make that field goal, punting it with one of the best punters in college football to try to nail him back inside the 10-yard line somewhere would have been probably, in my eyes, at a 24-24 with 9 minutes left, been a better tactic. Now, Monday morning quarterback is Monday morning quarterback. But at the same time, standing in the stands with everybody else that was around me, it felt like we all wanted to either kick a field goal or, if we had to, punt the ball, but not go for it on 4th and 8. That is a long conversion in the rain. And Shedeur is at that point at a 60% conversion, right? I don't think we're going to run that because we're not a running team. So I'm going to say that was an ugly part. Okay. Another one was a 4th-and-1 earlier in that set where it was 4th-and-1 for Baylor. Baylor was going to go for it. And on a 4th-and-1, they didn't throw a touchdown pass to one of the receivers for a touchdown, which I would understand. The quarterback, who is not a running quarterback, ran the ball for 45 yards for a touchdown on a 4th-and-1. We had the box stacked. We were ready to go to stop the run. And a non-running quarterback ran 45 yards on us for a touchdown. So obviously after that, our defense tightened up, and it was a much better game for our defense. I almost want to say that was kind of what galvanized our defense. So let me know what you think of my good, bad, and ugly. Am I going off the rails on the ugly part? I don't know. I think there are some things in there, like I was talking about game management. Game management, to me, and you guys who watch this channel know, that is my number one factor. Manage the clock, manage the game, manage. It's not always about airing it out and scoring as many points as you can and looking flashy and doing those things. It's just about protecting the football, especially when you have a lead or when you are tied with a team that is showing you that they can score on you, and using the clock to your advantage. What do you think about this? Talk about my points down in the chat. Tell me what you think as well. And then we will go into UCF tomorrow in a video early, and we'll talk about UCF and kind of what we look like going into UCF. Let me finish with this. I am so happy about this game. I am so happy we're able to win this game. I am so happy that we have the players that we have on this team that were able to bring us this win in such a dramatic fashion. And you guys know I'm not a media guy. I'm a fan. I'm in the stands watching this game. And I'm out of my flipping mind, soaking wet with all the other fans. I didn't see a single person leave before that touchdown. No one was leaving that stadium down as much as we were against Baylor at halftime. I mean, it was just a fantastic win. So please don't take any of my bad or uglies as negative things about Colorado. They're just things we need to fix, and we'll go forward. That's a wrap from Alpine Garage Sports. We will see you in the next video.